Hey guys, it's Austin here with OutJeeping. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to install an aftermarket radio in your Jeep. Alright, so a few things you'll need for installing an aftermarket radio. One, you'll need a head unit. You can buy whatever brand you want. This is a pretty universal size. It'll fit into majority of cars. Basically what comes in it is we got our metal bracket along with our wire harness. I got this radio for a car that was going to a scrapyard, so that's why it had previous connections, but I'm going to be reusing it in my Jeep. And over here we have our factory plug-in harness. Basically this will plug into the factory wire harness, and then we'll splice this into the radio harness with their diagram. Over here we have a universal bracket that'll fit a lot of Jeep Chrysler vehicles, so that's why there's many tabs on here that we'll actually have to cut off and only use the ones that we're going to need for today, which I think basically one down here and up here for the Jeep Cherokee. But first I'm going to start off with this wire harness. And with these two plugs in the little bag, they actually come with a wire diagram on what all the wires go. And you'll probably have an owner's manual for the head unit that you have, and in there they should have a wire diagram for all these wires that go into the head unit. So basically you can attach this with either of these butt connectors, which was on here before, but I'm actually just going to solder everything up and then use some nice heat shrink. I'm not going to show how to solder in this video, but I'll get these wires all hooked together. Alright, so I got my wire harness all soldered up and nicely done. Over here we have a ground wire, which does not go into these plugs. It's actually separate. On the stock head unit, it just had the spade on the end, so basically we're going to put a spade on here, and then we can connect it to that ground wire. Then over here we have our control wire for in aftermarket amplifier if you have it. I don't on this Jeep, so I'm just going to leave that out. And a couple of wires on this end that I did not connect. One is the orange wire, which is the illumination, basically your dash lights when the headlights come on. With this style radio, basically the backlight is always on. Then we have our blue wire, which is basically a power antenna, and obviously our Jeep doesn't have it because these harnesses go for a variety of vehicles. So if you have power antenna, you can hook that up. This radio does not actually have a power antenna wire, so you can actually use a control wire for that if you need to. But before we put this radio in this little faceplate adapter, I'm actually going to remove the old head unit. That way we can see how we're going to modify this to make it work. Alright, so inside the Jeep Cherokee, obviously the radio is right here, and first thing we got to do is remove this whole faceplate. And to do that, it's pretty simple. Grab under here, and then it just pops right out. Alright, so the next thing we got to do is remove two 10mm bolts. One's going to be here, other one down there, and that should be holding in our radio. Pull this out, and then we got our two connections, our antenna, and then we got our ground wire. Alright, so that was pretty simple. Right here we have a spade. I'm actually just going to put a universal spade connector, that way I can plug it in nicely with the one I'm going to put on the harness that we just made. Alright, so looking at our factory head unit compared to the bracket we got here, we got a tab on the bottom left over here and then the top right. And so basically we're going to cut everything else off of this bracket right here that we don't need, and we're just going to be leaving this hole right here and this one down here. And we're also going to be cutting out this X little thing that was there probably just for molding of this. And yeah, we're going to clear it all up and make it so it'll fit just like factory. I'm just going to be using a simple wire cutters to do this. Alright, so I went and got this bracket all ready for us to install. I had to actually file just these little ends for that little centerpiece that was in there. That way our new head unit should fit in nicely. So now we're going to take the bracket that the radio sits in, and we're going to install it into this plastic piece. First thing I'm going to do is actually bend in these tabs on the side, because this is what locks in the radio into place. So you just want to bend it in about 1/4 inch or whatever around there, and then we can take this and install it into our plastic bracket. And then to lock this into position, we got little tabs in each corner, and we want to push those all the way in until it stops moving. That way it should lock it into place. There's one. Alright, so now that's solidly in there, and now we can take our head unit, make sure it's right side up, and then we can put it into our bracket we made here. Then once it gets all the way in, it should click in with the sides, just like that. So now this is all one piece and it shouldn't move. And then lastly, we can take our trim piece and snap it into place. Alright, so now we can go back to the Jeep and install our new radio. Alright, I'm going to start off by putting our new wire harness into place. I got my ground wire, which I put new spades on, so this should just slide in. And then we can take our gray plug and snap it with the gray plug on here. And then same thing with the black. Now I'll take our new radio and plug it in the back of that. And then we have our antenna wire, which plugs in over here. If you have a subwoofer setup with an amplifier, you can connect your RCA jacks to these two terminals over here. But in this case, I don't have it on my Jeep right now, so we'll plug that back into place. And I'm going to feed all the wires back into the hole. We can push that into place. Now we can take our two 10mm bolts and then thread them in. Alright, so before I put that last piece of trim, I'm actually going to go and test it out and see if we got everything working. So now the last thing we got to do is just put our plastic cover back into place. If you have a little bit of space, you can pull that back. And then pop it in. There we go. Now we're all done. Alright guys, that's going to be a wrap for today's video. As you can see, it was a pretty straightforward install, nothing really too complicated at all. So if this video helped you, make sure to like and subscribe to the OutJeeping YouTube channel, and it helps keep these videos coming. And if you have any questions, make sure to comment below. So I'll see you guys in the next video.